Our society looks at any abnormality. They don't want to be inconvenienced. They don't want to have to deal with that.
When you live with someone with a disability, it's a constant thing. It never goes away.
I see that it is genocide, that we are trying to obliviate a whole population of Downs people.
It's not easy to be a Downs. They will make fun of me. They don't know me that well. They don't know I have a heart.
This program raises questions. This program is for people who find it hard to trust God. The best answers are wrapped in flesh and blood. My friends, people who are enduring real tragedies every single day. Quadriplegia, muscular dystrophy, stroke, bankruptcy, loneliness, singleness. We're going to talk to those very people who have touched my life. Hi, I'm Joni Tata. And as you might know, I work with a lot of special needs people, like the wonderful Robin Heiser, who we'll meet today. And I also work with their families. And do you know what I hear most from those families? That they never get a break. They never get time off. The disability has them going 24/7. Well, no wonder the divorce rate among those families is so high. 80%, the statistics tell us. Years ago, when I served on a government council on disability, our council was aware of that sad statistic. So the government decided to do a family conference. The council invited families from around the country, and then the government flew in all kinds of experts, educators, to talk to them. Oh, there were focus groups, there were lectures, roundtable discussions, position papers were written. And you know what? Those moms and dads left more tired and weary than when they came. Well, I remember coming back to Joni and friends and saying to our team, guys, we can do much better than that, much better. And we can make it a ministry. So back in 1991, Joni and friends came up with the idea to provide 5 days of respite for these families, respite that includes all sorts of things, fun, campfires, Bible study, swimming, times of devotion and prayer, wheelchair hikes, square dancing, and absolutely no position papers or focus groups. Come on, these families need a break. So let's ease their burden, let's relieve the weariness. The result? Our Joni and Friends family retreats.
Okay, who's next?
We had 14 around across the country. They're in many states, and this summer there were 3 in Pennsylvania, California, North Carolina, Tennessee, Chicago, Arizona, I believe we had them, in Ohio. I have the privilege of directing 3, and they are all filled. They are packed. We have a waiting list for all 3 of our retreats. We served 120 family at the 3 that I'm involved in, and I think they're so full and so packed because these families just want to go away and be typical, and this is the one place where they can go and they're typical.
Hey, way to go!
They're not different, they're not stared at, they're loved, they're embraced. There's 3 things that I always say everybody wants, and that's to be known, to be loved, and to be celebrated. And at our Joni and Friends Family Retreat, our families are known, they are loved, and they are celebrated.
I like that. Special needs families are celebrated. Remember that statistic I shared? The divorce rate of 80%? Well, we are out to change that statistic. So at a Joni and Friends Family Retreat, we celebrate all the things that strengthen and build up and unite a family.
The thing that I have discovered with many families with a disabled family member, they look out for each other. There's that constant awareness of where is the child that has a disability. They have that love and concern for their brother or sister that has the disability. For many of the Downs community, they are nonverbal, or it's more difficult to talk.
Having a Downs child, it's very obvious that there's a disability there. Like some of the kids now on the autistic spectrum, you know, they look normal, and when they're in the grocery store and they act out, parents are getting, you know, stares and getting like, why don't you control your kid, you know. That's a really painful place to be because your child looks normal. A Down child looks different. You know right away, they're already labeled, so you see them as being different. And so people will stare and they'll watch, and you just have this relationship with your Down sibling or your Down child, and you're loving on them, and they get to kind of watch a little glimpse of your life because they pay attention because they see the disability.
She is right. There is so much fear and misunderstanding. People don't know what to do, what to say, how to react. But I know a very special person with a disability who is breaking down that prejudice and fear. She's so inspiring. And I think you'll find her pretty inspiring too.
Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so.
Robin has become an example to me of what it means to be Christ-like. People with Down syndrome, so often people put them in a box. Robin is totally not in a box.
Be funny. Be yourself. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth on him shall not perish, but have everlasting life.
Robin has incredible gifts, and she has an amazing love for the Lord Jesus that challenges my walk for Christ.
She is a very high-functioning Downs person, and so her personality is very formed, and it shows itself in lots of ways. So that she loves to laugh, she loves to have a good time.
He might like that.
My younger sister Sally has actually, her fourth child has Down syndrome, Colin. Colin and Robin had their own language when he was a little boy. They're just now starting to, he's 13, so he's changing a little bit, but when he was a little boy, it was like they could relate to each other and connect to each other, both having Downs. It was like you'd watch them and you'd just cry watching the intimacy and the connection that they had. It was just something very special.
She means a lot to me because she's my aunt, and I love her so much that she's been with me all this time, and she's been through when I was a little child, and I just like having an aunt.
My Aunt Robin and my cousin Colin are both very high-level Down syndrome. They're very able. I have met kids from all over the spectrum, and it's kind of taught me a lot more because I always thought it was pretty easy to I mean, Colin and Aunt Robin, we just kind of, you know, we don't treat them any differently. I mean, they're very intelligent and they know what they're doing. But then I have seen that there are other ends of the spectrum, and I see that there are kids who do have a lot higher need for support or help throughout their daily lives.
She plays a big role in my life. Like, she's really encouraging always. She's encouraging to everyone, and everyone looks at her like that.
She wanted to become involved in the ministry that I was involved in, and I thought, well, maybe she can work in kids ministry. So I called her out in her home in Ohio one time, and I said, Robin, would you like to serve at Joni and Friends Family Retreat this summer and work in kids ministry? And she said, well, I'll have to first ask Jesus. And I said, okay. She goes, just a minute. And I hear the phone put down, and I hear her go, okay, Jesus, it's Robin. Miss Sib wants me to do this. Do you think I should? And there's complete silence. And then she goes, okay, all right, I'll tell her. Pick up the phone, and I hear this. He said it's okay, so I think it's a go. It challenges me. It's that childlike simplicity that he is just her all in all. So she challenges me in that way on many levels.
I always give God the glory, for he is my life. That's what I have on my testimony that I spoke at this camp. I think everybody came up to me afterwards and started crying and said, you really touched my life. The way that he made me was different. He had a purpose. But I did not know he picked me exactly. I think the Bible says something about he took me aside and she's special. But for some reason, he just took a liking to me.
Can you see why we all love Robin Heiser so much? But let's back up a little. Let's hear what it was like decades ago to be born with Down syndrome.
My mom had me. The old doctors would take me to an institution. And my mom said no.
Robin was the third child in our family. I have a younger brother, Bill, who was 18 months on behind me, and then Robin came along. When Robin was born, it was back in the time when they wanted to institutionalize people with disability. My mom and dad were told to go ahead and put her in an institution, that she would never do much of anything, that they should go ahead and go home and try to have some other kids, and that they didn't need to keep her at home. And she said, no way, I'm not sending Robin to an institution. So she brought her home, and she basically did what I call the early intervention that we're doing now. My mom did by intuitive knowledge, to stimulate, to read to Robin, to get her walking, to get her crawling, to do everything that Bill and I had done, so that there was no difference. She didn't treat her like she was special. She treated her like us. And everything that we did, she was included in and she was a part of.
I have so many good friends and best friends, and my mom is my hero. And my dad got saved. And I was so happy because I witnessed it. And he was so happy about it. And I was so thrilled that I threw my arms around him. I tried so hard to witness to him.
Everybody has gotten to know Robin because she's so outgoing and she's so relational, and she has this unconditional love, and she will compliment people and ask people how they are and pay attention to them. She has gotten involved with all different kinds of communities there, you know, not the disabled community as much as just anybody and anywhere. My brother runs a bed and breakfast, and she goes out there and visits with the racers that come in. There's a way that there's no boundaries of people in terms of who you are. It's just that you're a person, and you're valuable because you're a person. That's how it is with Robin.
Robin loves Jesus with a pure, untarnished, unfiltered, untouched by the world way. I think that's why she inspires absolutely everyone around her. She simply loves the Savior.
It was one Christmas a long time ago, and my brother was in a wheelchair. And instead of buying me something and my mom something, he gave us 2 pictures with suitcases, and he said, I want you to go to Israel to be where Jesus was. It was amazing. I touched my feet in Jordan River where Jesus was baptized. Oh, my favorite part was the tomb. I went in the tomb, and then we sang that song, Because He Lives.
She knows God. She believes in Him. She follows Him. She studies His Word. She listens to and prays to Him.
One thing for sure I do love is worshiping.
When Robin, let's say, is in church and is worshiping, there may be 500 people around her, but it's just her and her Lord. She incites you. She leads you to worship. You sense, do I know God like Robin knows God?
And the worship, it's in my blood to worship. And everyone says, why do you sit down in the front? I said, I can't, I need to focus. It's in my blood.
Our friend has a very full life, and she turns upside down that image of a disabled person sitting in the corner and feeling sorry for herself. Not Robin.
I love to read my Bible. I'm learning how to paint slowly. I'm a late bloomer. My favorite food is sweet and sour chicken. I love to swim. Just for you, I'm going to slide down so you can take a picture.
I think that our society today looks at any abnormality, and rather than seeing the value in it and seeing the genuineness that makes that particular disability unique and precious and wonderful, they look at the difficult areas that go with the disability, and they don't want to have to deal with that.
It's not easy to be a Downs. They will make fun of me. They don't know me that well. I'm short for my size. Even though I'm 53, they don't know I have a heart. I'm just a vessel, an earthly vessel in his hands. And he's a potter and I'm a slave. He molds me. He molds all these handicapped people. I'll be honest with you, they are unique. Every one of us are unique in God's hands.
Robin challenges our notions of how ministry happens, how attitudes and hearts and minds are changed. And sometimes it is in the simplest of ways.
I'll stop on the power line.
You did that too?
Yes.
This morning?
This morning.
Last year, they did little talks throughout the campus here, and then one of them was with Robin. She just started to talk about the fact that she can hear like everybody else, so we don't have to yell at her, which was hysterical. And just that she has feelings too. And for me, it was, I had a meltdown because I was one of those guys that just looked down on people with disabilities. He used her to get another little angle in there to do a little bit more deeper surgery. And that's why I'm better, because he's allowing me to be less of myself and more in him.
She has an incredible sense of knowing when people really need support. So she's very supportive. Like, she always knows when she can just approach somebody and ask them how they're doing, or like when she needs to write somebody a letter. She loves to send letters, and she has great penmanship. She loves to write, and she practices her words and uses a dictionary. She's learned how to use a dictionary.
When she comes into the room kind of lights up. She is always surrounded with people. It's actually been hard as the years have gone on to find time with Robin, because so many people want to spend time with her when she's here at camp, and there's just people always around her, and they just want to love on her, and she's very loving back.
For a family to really function well in the midst of life challenging situations, like a child with a disability, a family has to really center on God. God has to be at the very center of that family's being. Whatever they do as a family, the way that they function has to have God as high priority in their midst. I mean, family is God's example of the way the church is to function. Paul uses that as an example. God loves family. He loves it. And He loves when family functions well.
This was your first year of family retreat.
I tell you, working with many families here at Family Retreat, we have discovered that would families choose where they are with their child with disabilities? And no, they wouldn't choose it. Would they give it up? Absolutely not. People, when they come and they serve at our family retreats, they are changed. And the number one thing we hear is, it's like a slice of heaven, because we're all on common ground. you walk away saying, we all have disabilities. We all have those areas of our lives that we don't want people to know, we don't want people to see. And so we put on the facade. And up here, even the facades of the abled come tumbling down.
I thought of Robin recently when the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, they began recommending a broader prenatal testing for Down syndrome among younger pregnant women. Before, it was recommended that only older pregnant women have the test. But now, all mothers-to-be are routinely tested. And the result is, over 90% of pregnant women who are given a Down syndrome diagnosis, they choose to have an abortion. And for the 5,500 children who survive, who are born with Down syndrome each year, it'll be a lonely and a scary world for them in the future.
There are increasing numbers of the abortions of Downs. It's a really sad thing and really unbelievable, but it is true that it's happening.
I see that it is genocide, that we are trying to obliviate a whole population of Downs people because they aren't perfect. I heard of a story of a mom who gave birth to twins and chose to keep her typical child, but chose to get rid of her Downs child. When I think of the hundreds of people with Down syndrome that I have met in my life, I can honestly say every one of them affected my life in some way or another. Yes, they can be tough sometimes, and some of people with Down syndrome are very, very stubborn, but so is my typical 12-year-old very, very stubborn at times. And my typical 12-year-old has wonderful gifts to offer. He has an intellect that's incredible, but so do people with Down syndrome. And I think so often what we do is when we think of someone with Downs, we think of the word mental retardation. And I don't think of that at all. I think of someone who has a great gift to offer.
All right, right back over that way.
We are wiping out a population, but we don't want to call it that so often because that's not politically correct or it's too strong of a word, but that's what's going to happen.
So, what is the essence of Robin Heiser? What can we learn from her? What can we take away? Remember, she's speaking to you.
Number one, give God the glory and have faith. Because if you don't have the faith and you don't have the glory, you don't know Jesus. I can't wait to go to heaven. The very first thing I'm going to do is ask Jesus if he will hold me and say, well done. Well done, good servant. I want to see his face.
I know Robin's story has touched you, just like her life has influenced all of us. Her spiritual life is so simple, it's so basic. Her sweet, unvarnished, open, and oh so transparent love for Jesus Christ is so convincing. No, rather it is convicting, because most of us are so sophisticated. We make following Jesus so hard, much harder than it really is. We read all the latest writers, purchase all the latest Christian books, go to seminars, listen to audio tapes, pursue degree programs in biblical education, sign up for the latest conference. I mean, we are busy doing everything but the basics. And what would Robin say are the basics? What's her secret? Well, it is simply 1 Peter 4:19. It says, quote, "Those of you who suffer according to God's will should commit themselves to their faithful Creator and continue to do good." Committing yourself to your faithful Creator? Well, that's trusting God. Continuing to do good? That's obeying Him. If you grew up attending church, you probably sang that old hymn, "Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus," right? But to trust and obey. Well, according to the Apostle Peter, we could not find a better summary of what God expects of us when life gets confusing or demanding, complex or crazy. It is simply the basics. You gotta trust and obey. That is the secret to Robin's happiness. But oh, how unlike Robin so many of us are. I think it's because we all fail to realize just how much God has already done to prove Himself to us. The God we trust has set the sun and the moon and the stars in motion. He's ladled out the sea and formed the mountains. He's carved out rivers and puckered up mountain ranges. But the supreme demonstration of why we should trust and obey God was when He laid aside His divine splendor and became a man and died a martyr's death for us. If God has done that, surely He has proved Himself worthy of your trust. Surely He deserves your obedience. And if Robin were here right now, she would ask you to place your hand in the hand of Jesus Christ, who knows all your weaknesses, all your disabilities. Trust and obey, for there is no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey.